This is because a major event will commence in October, lasting the entire school year, demanding much of the staff's time and energy. Yet I am confident that you will find immense enjoyment in it. I am very pleased to announce that this year at Hogwarts. At that moment, a thunderclap shook the hall, and the doors burst open with a crash. A man, cloaked in travel robes and leaning on a well-worn cane, stood framed in the doorway. Lightning streaked across the ceiling, illuminating him. He drew back his hood, revealing long gray-white hair, and walked toward the staff table, drawing every eye in the hall. Another flash of lightning lit his face. Every inch of skin was scarred. His mouth twisted into a jagged line. A large chunk of his nose was missing. One eye small and black, the other wide and blue. His steps clattered heavily. Derek now noticed a wooden prosthetic leg ending in a clawed foot. Amid all the stares, he reached Dumbledore, shook hands, whispered a few words, and then took the empty seat beside him. "Allow me to introduce our new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher." Dumbledore cheerfully broke the silence. "Professor Moody." Except for Dumbledore and Hagrid, no one applauded. The students were frozen, staring at Moody's grotesque visage. He seemed utterly indifferent, pulling a curved flask from his robes and taking a long swig. "I understand the meaning behind the nickname," Derek murmured under his breath, eyes fixed on the magical eye. "Every word fits perfectly." Nearby, several boys, including Cedric, looked at Moody with awe. "As I mentioned," Dumbledore cleared his throat, "in the coming months, we are honored to host a truly remarkable event, not held for over a century. I am delighted to announce that the Triwizard Tournament will take place at Hogwarts this year." "You must be joking," Fred Weasley shouted. Dumbledore chuckled softly. "I am not joking, Mr. Weasley," he said. "Although, since you mentioned jokes, I once heard a curious tale involving a troll, a banshee, and a goblin, all walking into the same pub." Professor McGonagall cleared her throat loudly. "Oh, perhaps now is not the best time for that," Dumbledore said. "Regarding the Triwizard Tournament, some of you may not know how it works. Those familiar may take a brief moment's break while I explain. The Triwizard Tournament was established over 7 centuries ago as a friendly competition among the 3 largest European wizarding schools, Hogwarts, Beauxbatons, and Durmstrang. Each school selects one champion to compete in 3 magical tasks. The tournament occurs every 5 years, hosted in rotation by each school, intended to foster friendship between young wizards of different nations. However, due to the high number of fatalities, it was discontinued. Attempts to revive it have been made in every generation," Dumbledore continued, "yet none succeeded. This summer, the Ministry's Department of International Magical Cooperation and the Department of Magical Games and Sports determined the time is ripe for another attempt. Much effort has been made to ensure that no champion faces life-threatening danger. In October, the heads of Beauxbatons and Durmstrang will arrive with carefully selected students. The selection ceremony will take place on Halloween. A fair judge will determine which students are most qualified to compete for the Triwizard Cup, bringing glory to their school and a personal prize of 1,000 galleons." Derek raised an eyebrow, a sudden intuition striking him. Harry would be involved in this competition somehow. Based on last year's experience and the stories of the previous 2 years, any major event this year would inevitably touch Harry Potter. "I'm entering," Zacharias whispered, fists clenched, eyes shining with excitement at the thought of such honor and reward. He was not alone. Across every table, students whispered excitedly or stared at Dumbledore with fevered anticipation. "Are you entering, Derek?" Ernie asked quietly. "Sounds interesting," Derek said, "but I won't sign up. I have enough on my plate this semester." The animagus practice and mental lock exercises still awaited his attention. "But you're second in the year," Ernie urged. "If Granger hadn't taken 12 courses last term and scored 320%, you'd be first. No one else could represent the 4th year." Derek couldn't help but laugh. "What kind of logic is that? One representative per year from 1st to 7th. "You should heed Dumbledore's words," Justin advised sensibly. "This tournament can be deadly." Dumbledore spoke again, and the hall fell silent. "I know you all wish to win the Triwizard Cup for Hogwarts," he said, "but the competing schools and the Ministry have agreed on an age requirement. Only students who are 17 or older may enter." Dumbledore raised his voice. Some students murmured in protest, Zacharias among them. This is necessary, for even with all precautions, the tasks remain challenging and dangerous. No student below 6th year could possibly manage. I personally guarantee that no underage student will deceive the judges to become Hogwarts champion. His gaze swept the hall, eyes gleaming with meaning. Therefore, if you are not 17, do not waste your time applying. The Beauxtons and Durmstrang delegations will arrive in October and spend most of the school year with us. I know you will all be warm and courteous hosts, and once Hogwarts champion is chosen, you will support him or her wholeheartedly. Now, it is late. To ensure you are alert and ready for tomorrow's lessons, off to bed, quickly. The great hall echoed with the clatter of chairs and the constant chatter of students. They all sprang to their feet, moving toward the double doors and spilling into the entrance hall. This isn't fair, Zacharias grumbled, clearly unhappy. I really want to fight for Hogwarts' honor. Why restrict it to 17-year-olds? Yeah, and there's 1,000 galleon prize, Ernie said dreamily. I want to buy a firebolt right away. You two can stop daydreaming, Susan said, laughing as she linked arms with Hannah. Cedric seems determined to enter. He's old enough. There's no way you can beat him. Several students had already gathered around Cedric, cheering as if he'd already won the trophy. Cedric, Derek squeezed through the crowd and tapped him on the arm. Are you signing up? Yes, Cedric replied confidently, a smile spreading across his face. I have to try. This is the perfect chance to prove myself. I actually wanted to advise you not to. Quiet. Sorry, Derek. What did you just say? Nothing, Derek muttered. The first day of term dawned with the storm finally gone, though the ceiling of the great hall still held heavy gray clouds. Derek nibbled on his breakfast while pondering how to stop Cedric from entering the Triwizard Tournament. Above him, large slate-colored clouds rolled across the sky. Nearby, Zacharias and Ernie, unusually friendly, whispered together, scheming about how to trick Dumbledore and sneak into the competition. Don't be foolish. You really think the most powerful wizards in Britain, or even Europe, can be fooled by children's tricks? Derek interrupted for the third time, as Ernie suggested another heavy dose of aging potion. Weak fourth-year students deceiving them? You lack the drive for eternal glory, so don't bother us, Greengrass, Zacharias said, flaring his nostrils. Maybe Dumbledore is so powerful that he overlooks minor tricks. Derek shot him a scornful look. Keep studying, Zacharias. If you become a champion, I'll be your cheerleader. Derek poked at his half-eaten slice of bread, losing his appetite. The anxiety he'd washed away over the summer with chicken soup returned, along with his frustration at his own limitations. If he knew nothing, he could relax and watch the show. If he knew everything, he could plan and prepare. But now, he knew just enough to be dangerously aware. And it was maddening. Unlike Ernie and Zacharias, whose attempts were little more than playful experiments, Cedric genuinely had a chance to become Hogwarts champion. He'd turned 17 at the end of September, was a prefect, academically excellent, and magically skilled. In every way, he was among the top of the 6th and 7th years. If Derek tried to persuade Cedric to withdraw, he couldn't think of a convincing argument. If he ignored it, who knew what could happen with the Triwizard Tournament linked to Harry Potter? After all, in Harry's first and second years, Voldemort had already reached into Hogwarts and killed 2 students casually. How could he ensure nothing went wrong this year? In short, conflicted. Derek's mind remained troubled as the students crossed the wet vegetable garden to Greenhouse 3. His focus shifted only when Professor Sprout introduced a plant he'd never seen before. Ugly didn't even begin to describe them. They resembled black, slimy slugs, sprouting straight from the soil, wriggling slightly, each covered with shiny, bulging sacs filled with liquid. Bubotuber tubers, Sprout cheerfully explained. You need to squeeze them with your hands, shake your wand over the pus. What? Seamus Finnegan asked, clearly disgusted. Pus, Finnegan. Pus, Sprout said. It's extremely valuable, so don't waste it. You'll collect the pus in these bottles. Wear your dragon-hide gloves. Undiluted Bubotuber pus can seriously harm your skin. The process was revolting, but strangely satisfying. Each burst of a sac sent sticky yellow-green liquid flying with a pungent gasoline-like smell. By the end of class, they'd collected several bottles. Madame Pomfrey will be pleased, Sprout said, corking the last bottle. Bubotuber pus is the best cure for stubborn acne. This should prevent students from using drastic measures to remove their pimples. Like poor Eloise Midgen, Hannah whispered. She tried a spell to get rid of pimples and ended up losing part of her nose. Beauty is every girl's pursuit, Derek remarked. Madame Pomfrey's remedies are reliable. The nose will be restored. A deep, resonant bell rang through the castle, signaling the end of class. Students dispersed, some heading to care of magical creatures. Derek climbed the stone steps and headed straight for the library. But his mission remained unfulfilled. The library doesn't keep student records. I can't help you, Mrs. Pence refused. Filch's office? Derek asked. Could I check past student records there? Not likely. Filch only keeps files on students he's punished. Derek frowned, frustrated. Excuse me, where can I check student records? He asked. Could you give me a few pointers? Typically, student files are kept in the offices of the 4 heads of house, Madam Pence replied. That way, the heads can easily track their students' academic progress. Now, Mr. Hufflepuff, I must get to work. If you have further questions, you can consult Professor Sprout. She picked up her feather duster and began sweeping dust from the rows of bookshelves. Derek stood there, feeling utterly foolish, thinking that the semester had gotten off to a terribly rough start. He still didn't know which house Olivia belonged to, and checking with all 4 houses one by one had a slim chance of success. He wasn't even confident about dealing with his own head of house, let alone McGonagall or Snape. After 3 minutes of gloom, he picked a random seat, pulled out 2 notebooks from his bag, and started reading. When Claire had helped him pack at the end of August, she had thoughtfully slipped her notes on animagus forms into his trunk. That gave him 2 distinct approaches and perspectives to study and learn from. Since Claire herself wasn't an animagus, her notes came from her student days at Ilvermorny, excerpts from oral archives, and her own reflections. She had understood the shape-shifting spells through reading, analysis, and critique. Every theory and tricky point was explained in detail. Some principles were so advanced that Derek could only partially grasp them. Sirius's notes, on the other hand, were mostly practical instructions and precautions. It was clear that when they practiced the spells back then, they hadn't fully understood the concepts and theory behind transfiguration. They had improvised a method suited for animagi, requiring little theoretical knowledge. Derek admired their intelligence, courage, and luck. They had experimented secretly, dared to practice on their own, and ultimately succeeded. Compared to the constant difficulties of everyday life, the problems in Transfiguration were far easier to tackle. Derek immersed himself in study, nearly losing track of time until someone placed a stack of books on the table beside him. Good afternoon, Derek. Hermione pulled over a chair. Haven't had lunch yet? Is it lunchtime already? Derek stretched. Thanks for the reminder, or I'd be starving during arithmancy this afternoon. What's all this? Hermione had brought a bundle of massive, worn, yellow, dusty tomes similar to the magical creature management regulations, some so frayed the covers were nearly illegible. Her eyes shone as she cleared her throat loudly. Derek, I have a question for you, she said, very seriously. Do you know Hogwarts has house elves? Why are we suddenly talking about house elves? Derek leaned back, holding up his notebook. There are over 100 house elves at Hogwarts, Hermione said, her voice pained. They mostly stay in the kitchens, cooking, cleaning, providing countless services, but they have no pay, no holidays, no allowances, nothing at all. Oh, Derek said. Oh, Hermione exclaimed incredulously. They are forced into slave labor. They are exploited, used by wizards without compensation, and you just say, oh? Derek lifted his gaze from the notebook and glanced at her. Should I pay them? Give them clothes? He asked. Unfortunately, I don't have that authority. They're Hogwarts property. They are not property, Derek, Hermione said sharply. How can you ignore their feelings? They devote all their emotions to serving humans, he said calmly. Their master's needs are their needs. It has always been that way. I want to see how long always has lasted, Hermione said, dramatically pulling a book over. Let's see if anyone in history thought the same as I do. What idea? I haven't summarized it fully yet. Hermione flipped through the book, making a rustling sound. But the basic concept is to free house elves from slavery, allow them to earn wages like humans, set maximum work hours, provide holidays, respect their rights, basically, legal protection. Derek set his notebook down, feeling suddenly cheerful, watching her with genuine interest. You think I'm wasting my time like last semester preparing a pointless argument? Hermione asked, puffing up with determination. This time, I won't let you convince me otherwise. No, I'm not trying to convince you. Keep researching, Derek said. My household doesn't have house elves. Even if the International Confederation of Wizards urges legislation worldwide, it wouldn't affect me. Then why are you looking at me like I'm some naive fool? I'm just thinking I'm old, Derek said, pretending to sigh. Youth is wonderful, Miss Granger. The future of world peace is in your hands. Now goodbye. I'm off to lunch. Chapter 39, Moody. Because of that teasing remark, Hermione had spent the entire afternoon of divination class scowling, while Derek's repeated success in scoring points only intensified her grim expression. Excellent, Greengrass, excellent! Professor Victor boomed from behind him. You are the most talented student I've ever seen in divination arithmetic. 10 points to Hufflepuff. The rest of the class glared at him. All right, Professor Victor continued, returning to the podium. I see this problem every year. Students' skills drop dramatically at the start of term. Did any of you actually do the summer homework I assigned? Murmurs of assent rose from the class. At least half of you didn't, Victor said bluntly. Or you did a quick few days cramming of the tables and then tossed it aside. Some lowered their heads in shame. Divination arithmetic is an art of calculation. Every number, every symbol, every letter carries magical power. If you cannot wield them skillfully, how can you perform precise predictions? No homework will be assigned today, but those who neglected their summer work should review last term's material. Class dismissed. The announcement of no homework instantly lifted the tension. Students chatted as they flowed downstairs to the great hall for dinner. Keep it up, Derek, Susan said cheerfully. If you can score 30 points every divination arithmetic lesson, we can definitely defend the House Cup this term. How was today? Ernie and Justin squeezed through the crowd on the second floor to join them. Justin's parents managed to send over a few books. We finally have some Muggle research papers to work with. A whole pile of homework? Susan said excitedly. Professor Victor didn't assign any. Ah, back to school cheer, Justin sighed heavily. First the Bubotuber pus, then blasting snails, and now a pile of homework. God help me. Blasting snails? Derek asked. A strange creature that can burn, sting, and bite, Ernie said with disgust. Hagrid wants us to figure out its recipe. A strange cough came from the front. It's you, Hermione, Ernie said. Can you convince him to teach something normal for once? I'd rather study a hippogriff or some other fierce beast. Don't let Hagrid hear that, Ernie. Ron's sullen voice came from behind. He and Harry had joined the queue for dinner, standing at the back. Next time, he'll bring a dragon. A piercing voice rang out from the entrance hall. Weasley, hey! Weasley! Everyone turned. Malfoy and his two cronies were practically bouncing with glee. Your dad's in the paper, Weasley! Malfoy shouted, waving a copy of the Daily Prophet as loudly as possible so that everyone in the crowded hall could hear. Listen to this! Ministry in new trouble. It seems the Ministry isn't out of trouble yet, wrote Rita Skeeter, our special correspondent. Recently, the Ministry has been criticized for failing to maintain order during the Quidditch World Cup final and for not explaining the disappearance of a female Ministry official. Yesterday, due to the bizarre actions of Arthur Weasley of the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures, the Ministry fell into yet another embarrassing situation. Malfoy lifted his head. Think about it, Weasley. They even got your father's name wrong. He's such an insignificant little man, isn't he? He said, gloating, his voice carrying across the hall. Malfoy held the paper up theatrically, continuing to read. 2 years ago, Arthur Weasley was accused of owning a flying car. Yesterday, he became involved in a dispute with several Muggle law enforcement officers over a large batch of highly aggressive trash bins. Mr. Weasley apparently rushed to assist Mad-Eye Moody, a former Auror. When Moody could no longer distinguish a normal handshake from attempted murder, he retired from the Ministry. Sure enough, when Mr. Weasley arrived at Moody's heavily guarded residence, It turned out to be a false alarm. Mr. Weasley had to modify the memories of several officers to extricate himself. When asked by the Daily Prophet why he involved the ministry in such a pointless and potentially troublesome incident, Mr. Weasley refused to answer. "There's a photo too, Weasley," Malfoy said, flipping the paper and holding it high. "A picture of your parents, standing at the door of your house. Can you believe you call that a house? Your mum would look okay if she lost a few pounds, right?" Ron trembled with rage. Everyone in the hall stared at him. "Back off, Malfoy," Harry said. "Don't get angry, Ron." "Oh, and Potter, you stayed with them this summer, right?" Malfoy sneered. "So tell me, is his mum really that fat, or does the photo make her look worse?" "And your mum, Malfoy?" Harry shot back, grabbing Hermione and Ron's robes to keep him from lunging. "Look at her face. It's like she's got something awful under her nose. Is she always like that, or just when she's around you?" Malfoy's pale face flushed slightly. "You dare insult my mother, Potter." "Then shut your fat mouth," Harry shot back, turning away. Malfoy's hand suddenly slipped into his robe pocket. With a flash of anger, he drew his wand and aimed it at Harry's back. Derek instinctively drew his own wand. After all, Harry was his friend. "Disarm him!" Bang! Magic flew from more than one source. As Derek disarmed Malfoy, another spell struck him simultaneously. A white ferret shivered on the stone floor, right where Malfoy had just stood. Derek raised an eyebrow in surprise. He hadn't expected this new professor's transfiguration to be so precise. A roar echoed through the entrance hall. "Oh, you don't do that, boy!" Moody hobbled down the marble stairs, wand in hand, pointing at the trembling ferret. The hall fell silent. No one dared move except Moody. He glanced at Harry, who was still puzzled, his normal eye fixed on Harry while the others seemed to peer right into his mind. "Did it hurt you?" Moody barked, his voice hoarse. "What?" Harry blinked. "Who hurt me?" "Don't touch it," Moody shouted. "Don't touch. What?" Harry asked, completely confused. "Not you. It's him," Moody growled, thumb over his shoulder toward one of Malfoy's cronies. He had tried to pick up the ferret but froze in fear. Moody's rolling eyes seemed almost magical, able to see behind people's heads. Moody limped toward the ferret. It squeaked in terror and scuttled toward the dungeons below. "I won't stand for this," Moody bellowed, raising his wand. The ferret suddenly shot 10 feet into the air, crashed to the floor, then bounced back up again. "I can't stand cowards who attack from behind," Moody growled, his rough voice resonating as the ferret leapt higher, screaming in pain. "It's the dirtiest, most despicable behavior." The ferret flailed its legs and tail helplessly midair. "Impressive transfiguration," Derek whispered to Susan. "Cedric needn't worry about his skills. Moody's clearly got talent." "Should we warn him?" Hermione asked nervously. "He's going to hurt Malfoy." Ron's satisfied expression darkened slightly. "Hermione, there's Madame Pomfrey present," he said carelessly. "Don't ruin the best moment of my life." "Professor Moody, what are you doing?" a shocked voice called. Professor McGonagall was descending the marble stairs, clutching a pile of books. "Teaching him a lesson," Moody replied. "A lesson? Moody, is that a student?" McGonagall exclaimed, dropping some books in shock. "Yes," Moody said simply. "Good heavens!" McGonagall hurried down, drawing her wand. With a loud crack, Malfoy reverted to his human form, curling into a heap on the stone floor, pale yellow hair plastered over his flushed, glaring face. Slowly, he picked up his wand, trembling. "Moody, we never use transfiguration as punishment." McGonagall said weakly. "Professor Dumbledore must have told you. Maybe he mentioned it," Moody said nonchalantly, scratching his jaw. "But I thought a proper scare was necessary. We could have used detention, Moody, or reported him to his head of house." "I'll do that," Moody said, then turned to Derek. "Nice disarming charm. What's your name, child?" "Derek Greedo, Professor." "Hufflepuff. Ha, 10 points," Moody said, studying him critically. "Seems you have some knack for defense against the dark arts. I'll give you more chances in class." "All right, boy." Limping forward, he glared at Malfoy. "Your head of house is Snape, yes?" "Yes," Malfoy muttered resentfully. "Good. An old friend," Moody roared. "I've been wanting to have a proper chat with Snape since yesterday. Come on, boy." He grabbed Malfoy by the arm, dragging him toward the dungeons. The thump of his wooden leg echoed down the corridor. McGonagall watched them anxiously. After a moment, she used her wand to levitate the scattered books back into her arms. "Go have your lunch," she commanded. scanning the students sharply. I expect, especially from top students, no mischief with transfiguration. If I catch anyone, I'll make them learn it properly in my class. Hufflepuff loses 5 points, Mr. Greedo, for using magic in the corridor. Ernie and Justin protested, mouths open. Derek tugged at their robes. I'll be careful, Professor McGonagall, he promised. How can she do that? You were using magic to protect a friend. Ernie fumed after McGonagall left. Hufflepuff loses 5 points? She should have given you 10. Don't forget Moody's extra points. I still ended up earning 5 points, Derek said reassuringly. Thanks, Derek. Harry scratched his cheek. Otherwise, I might have ended up in the infirmary. Just forget this little incident, Derek shrugged. Moody was right there. You're not going to get hit by a curse with him around. Ron suddenly plunged his hand into his backpack, searching for his class schedule, then looked up disappointedly. We don't get his class until Thursday. I really want to learn a couple of tricks from him now, then turn Malfoy into a hopping, squeaking white ferret. Susan excitedly waved their schedules. We've got Defense Against the Dark Arts on Wednesday. That's perfect. Author's note, answering some comments. What do you mean by pampering tone and expression or helpless yet indulgent interaction? I'm honestly speechless. Perhaps the Valentine's Day extra gave the impression that Derek and Hermione were already in a passionate romance? Nope. Derek is just teasing Hermione when she does something silly. At most, it's friendly banter. When I was shaping Derek's character, I hesitated about pairing him romantically. His personality makes it hard for young girls to enter his heart, but I wanted him to have the chance at love eventually. Yes, Derek and Hermione's relationship will develop slowly, step by step, until it eventually blossoms. I tried my best to write that process. Thanks for your support. Chapter 40, The Unforgivable Curse. Moody's reputation had skyrocketed at Hogwarts after the Transfiguration incident in the entrance hall. Students admired and feared him alike, eagerly anticipating his first class. By lunchtime on Wednesday, the fourth-year Hufflepuff students were already seated neatly in the staff room, each with a copy of The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Defense, waiting in unusually tense silence. Soon, the unmistakable clomp-clomp of Moody's footsteps echoed down the corridor. He entered the classroom, as bizarre and intimidating as ever. Put those things away, he barked roughly, leaning heavily on his crutch as he made his way to the podium and sat down. You won't need those textbooks. Students hurriedly stuffed their books into their bags, exchanging excited glances. Moody shuffled the class list, flicked his gray hair away from his twisted, scarred face, and began calling names. His normal eye scanned down the list while the magical eye darted back and forth, scrutinizing every student who answered. All right, he said once roll call was done. I received a letter from Professor Lupin outlining this course. It seems you already know the basics of dealing with dark creatures. You can handle boggarts, redcaps, pumpkinheads, grindylows, kappas, and werewolves. But when it comes to countering spells, your knowledge is lacking. Very lacking, Moody continued. Therefore, I intend to give you a taste of spells cast by real wizards. I have a year to teach you how to defend against the dark arts. Ernie shivered, a mix of fear and anticipation. Derek quietly nodded. So the rumors about curses in Defense Against the Dark Arts were exaggerated. Moody knew he wouldn't last long anyway. Spells come in many forms, with varying magical strength. According to ministry regulations, I should only teach you how to counter them, nothing more. Normally, since you're not yet 6th years, I shouldn't show you illegal dark magic spells, because you're too young to handle them. But Professor Dumbledore has praised your courage, saying you're capable. In my view, the earlier you understand what you might face, the better. If you've never seen a thing, how can you protect yourself against it? A wizard casting an illegal spell won't explain his intentions politely or fairly. You must be ready, vigilant. Now, who can tell me which spells carry the harshest penalties under wizarding law? Moody hobbled to Derek's side, tapping his crutch on the floor. Professor Lupin specifically mentioned your performance, Greengrass. I trust you can answer this. Cruciatus, Imperius, and Avada Kedavra, Derek said after a moment's pause. A few students glanced nervously at him. Exactly. Let's start with the Cruciatus curse, Moody said approvingly. He hobbled back to the podium, opened a drawer, and took out a glass jar containing 3 large black spiders wriggling inside. He picked one up, holding it on his palm for everyone to see, then pointed his wand at it and muttered, "Soul release!" The spider leapt off his palm, dangling by a thin thread, swinging back and forth like it was on a tall swing. It stiffened, flipped over, breaking the thread, landed on the table, and began tumbling in circles. Moody flicked his wand, and it stood on its 2 hind legs, performing something akin to tap dancing. The class laughed, everyone but Moody. "Fun, isn't it?" he barked. "Would you like it if I did this to you?" The laughter vanished instantly. "Under my control entirely," Moody said quietly. The spider twisted and rolled relentlessly. "I can make it jump out the window, drown itself, or leap down anyone's throat." "Years ago, many wizards were controlled by the Cruciatus Curse," Moody continued, hinting unmistakably at Voldemort's forces. "During those most dangerous days, it really kept the Ministry busy. They had to figure out who acted under duress and who acted of their own free will. The Cruciatus Curse can be resisted. I'll teach you the method, but it requires immense inner strength. Not everyone can master it. You'd better avoid being struck by it. Always stay alert," he suddenly bellowed, startling everyone. Moody grabbed the tumbling spider, tossed it back into its glass jar, then turned his back to the class and pulled out a second spider, placing it on the lectern. It remained frozen, clearly terrified. "The Cruciatus Curse," Moody said. "We need to enlarge it so you can see it clearly." With a flick of his wand at the spider, he commanded, "Grow swiftly." The spider swelled rapidly, soon larger than a dinner plate. Moody raised his wand again, pointing at it, and murmured, "Crucio!" Immediately, the spider's legs curled tightly against its body. It flipped and convulsed violently, thrashing side to side. It made no sound, but everyone in the classroom could see its agony. Moody kept the wand steady, and the spider's shaking grew even more intense. Derek felt queasy. Finally, Moody lowered his wand. The spider's legs relaxed, though it still twitched. The students collectively exhaled in relief. "Extreme pain," Moody said softly. "If you can cast the Cruciatus Curse, you won't need thumbscrews or knives to torment someone." This curse was once very popular. The last curse, and the most powerful, Moody's crooked mouth twitched into a faint smile, Avada Kedavra, the killing curse. He reached into the jar for the third spider. Sensing its fate, it scurried frantically along the bottom, trying to evade his fingers, but he caught it and placed it on the lectern. It began crawling desperately across the wooden surface. Moody raised his wand. Derek instinctively squinted. "Avada Kedavra!" Moody roared. A blinding green light seared the eyes, accompanied by a chaotic roar, like an invisible colossus streaking through the air. The spider flipped onto its back, lifeless, not a mark on it, but undeniably dead. Ernie and Justin tensed, stifling screams. Derek's ribs tingled and burned where his wand had been, but he subtly wrapped his robe around it to avoid further injury. Moody swept the dead spider to the floor. "Not pleasant," he said calmly, "and extremely unsettling. There's no counter curse, no defense. As far as people know, only one person has ever survived it. You all know who that is." A murmur spread through the classroom, mostly about Harry Potter. "The killing curse requires a strong magical foundation," Moody continued. "You can point your wands at me and try to cast it. I'd probably only end up with a nosebleed. That doesn't matter. I'm here to teach you how to cast these curses. Why show you this if there's no counter? Because you must understand. You must recognize what's truly dangerous. You don't want to find yourself facing what you're about to see. Stay alert," he bellowed again, startling the class. "All right, these 3 curses, Avada Kedavra, the Cruciatus, and the Imperius, are known as the unforgivable curses. Using any one of them on a human is enough to earn a life sentence in Azkaban. These are the threats you must resist. This is what I'm teaching you to resist. You must be prepared, vigilant, and never let your guard down. Grab your quills and write this down." For the remainder of the lesson, students busied themselves taking notes on the 3 curses. The classroom was silent until the bell rang. Once Moody dismissed the class, the moment students left, conversations erupted like a torrent. Most spoke of the curses with awe and trepidation. Derek avoided the crowd, moving to a quiet stairwell. He pulled out his wand from his robe and examined it carefully. The wand lay silently in his right hand, no tremor, no heat, seeming as if nothing had happened in the past few minutes. But Derek knew things were becoming more complicated. After the dark mark at the World Cup, his wand had already shown unusual behavior. Now, it reacted to the unforgivable curses. What did this mean? According to Ollivander, wands have minds of their own. So what exactly was the ebony wand in his hand thinking? Author's note, the plot here doesn't shift much, but for completeness, it can't be skipped. Small modifications and added details are necessary to preserve the flow of events. Chapter 41, Resistance. Just as Derek's mind wandered, speculating about the state of his wand, he heard the familiar clomp, clomp, clomp behind him. He slipped his wand back into his robe, turned around, and saw Moody hobbling toward him. Instinctively, Derek's hand retreated from his pocket, lightly gripping the wand, his gaze fixed on the approaching professor. Over the past few days, the rough image Derek had formed of Moody had completely changed. This new professor wasn't merely a temperamental, eccentric, and formidable retired veteran wizard. He was a gray area practitioner, someone who could make unforgivable curses, especially the Cruciatus and Avada Kedavra, truly lethal, worthy of the words ruthless and merciless. After this class, it would be impossible for Derek to view Moody simply as an ordinary teacher. "Fancy a cup of tea, Greengrass?" Moody asked hoarsely. "Professor Lupin told me you're the most outstanding student in your year. Your perspective matters. Tell me what you think of this course." "I don't have any particular thoughts, Professor," Derek replied cautiously. "Your teaching is impeccable." Moody's magical blue eye studied him, its iris trembling slightly in its socket. Then he said, "A bit uncomfortable, huh? It may seem harsh, but you need to understand it's necessary. No need to hide it. Also," his crooked mouth curved into a faint grin, "being on alert doesn't mean gripping your wand all the time. If you have any ideas, come find me in my office anytime." He then leaned on his crutch and slowly returned to the classroom. That evening, when Ernie and Justin returned to the common room to do homework, Derek was hunched over a copy of Magical Omens, flipping through it quickly. A tall stack of library-stamped books sat in front of him. "Clearing the mists of the future, Death Omens, What to Do When the Worst is Coming," Ernie said, peering over at him. "You're reading this stuff? Trying to teach yourself divination?" "I'm looking for specific information," Derek said, "about some unusual and exceptional cases." "I can list plenty of exceptional cases," Justin said listlessly. "Muggle Studies already dumped a ton of homework on us at the start of term. Professor Bubbage wants a paper on Muggle artifacts in wizarding life with at least 5 examples. It's just the start of term, and I have no clue. Also, I thought you'd be confident in this subject," Derek said, tossing the half-read book onto the pile. "But this is useless. Total trash." "I picked Muggle Studies for convenience," Justin said, hair on end from scratching his head in frustration. "But why is it so complicated from a wizarding perspective? Ordinary Muggles, like my parents, don't study gun mechanics." "I know guns," Ernie murmured, peering at the dense text in intermediate potion making. "They're like Muggles' wands. We use wands. They use guns, right?" "Nope, Ernie," Justin said, scribbling on parchment. "Every wizard has a wand, but I've never seen a Muggle with a gun in hand." "You're the boss. You decide," Ernie shrugged. "Next paper. That's how I'll write it. Though I still don't understand how Muggles live without wands. Derek, can you tell me the 5 uses of toad innards in potions?" "I thought potion essays weren't due until next week." Justin craned his neck. "So far, herbology, transfiguration, potions, and Muggle studies all have assignments. We need to make every day count," Ernie said, counting on his fingers in frustration. "Damn old bat Snape. He assigns the most work. 3 full sheets of parchment. Entire weekend gone. I wish Moody would turn him into a ferret and toss him in the Forbidden Forest." "Don't you think Snape seems even more irritable since Moody arrived?" Justin asked. "Obviously," Derek said. "Even someone like me, who's only been at Hogwarts a year, knows Snape wanted the Diada job badly. He seems to have missed it 4 years in a row, right?" "I think Snape's afraid of Moody," Justin said with certainty. "I can tell he's avoiding Moody's gaze, both the magical eye and the normal one." "But this doesn't help with potions homework," Ernie snapped back to reality. "Moody can't magically change Snape, and if it were just potions, fine. But all the assignments this term keep getting harder, more numerous, and we can't compete in the Triwizard Tournament." "I'm genuinely pleased," Derek said, that you've realized the gap between you and Dumbledore. Within 2 weeks, Ernie's doubts were answered. When the students loudly complained about the heavy Transfiguration homework, Professor McGonagall explained, "You're entering a critical stage of your magical education," she told them, her eyes glinting behind her square spectacles. "Your OLLs are approaching." "But we don't take exams until 5th year," Dean Thomas protested. "Perhaps, Thomas, but trust me, you must be prepared. In this class, only Greengrass and Granger can turn a hedgehog into a proper pincushion. Thomas, I should remind you, your hedgehog will still curl up in fear if someone brings a needle near it." All eyes turned to Derek as he shrugged. Hermione's cheeks burned red as she fought to hide her smug satisfaction. By the end of that Transfiguration class, only Derek and Hermione had no homework assigned. "Derek, you can't keep avoiding me," Hermione said at the classroom door, blocking the three of them. "You need to participate in group activities. If it's about SPW, forget it." Derek shook his head like a rattle. "I've already paid 2 galleons. The rest is up to you." Hermione's eyes blazed. "Do you realize that changing your sheets, lighting your fire, cleaning your classroom, cooking for you, these are all unpaid, enslaved magical creatures? They need your support, not just your money." After poring over several large volumes in the library, Hermione's resolve to help house elves only grew stronger. She founded the Society for the Promotion of House Elf Welfare and enthusiastically invited Derek to join as one of its first members. But Derek had been swamped all semester. Beyond the heavy coursework, he was mastering Animagus transformation, scouring the library's countless volumes for clues about wand anomalies, and still tracking information on Olivia Hawke, planning how to sneak into the headmaster's office. Under such pressures, he had neither the time, energy, nor inclination to concern himself with the welfare of house elves. Hermione seemed ready to press him further, but Ernie raised a hand immediately. "What can we do, Hermione?" he asked. "For this SPW?" Hermione's expression was a mixture of surprise and delight. "I'm recruiting members. Participants pay 2 sickles, which go toward making badges, and the money will also fund flyers." "No problem at all," Ernie said, pulling 4 sickles from his pocket and handing them over. "This is ours and Justin's. You can give us the badges later. We're going to be late for the next class, so move aside." They slipped into Defense Against the Dark Arts just before the bell. To their shock, Moody announced that the next lesson would involve demonstrating the Imperious Curse on each student in turn, to show its power and test their ability to resist it. But you said these are illegal, Professor," Susan protested uneasily as Moody waved his wand, shoving desks aside to clear a large space in the center of the classroom. "Using them on people would send you to Azkaban," Moody interrupted. His magical eyes swung toward her, staring unblinking and grim. "But Dumbledore wants you to experience it. If you're willing to learn the hard way, waiting for someone to cast this curse on you and take total control, fine, I agree. You may leave." He pointed a rough finger toward the door. Susan's face drained of color, fear-stricken, yet she did not move or speak. Moody then called students up one by one to face the curse. As expected, 14-year-old wizards struggled to resist, reacting wildly under its influence. Ernie flew around the classroom on his backpack 4 times. Justin mimicked an owl, nearly leaping out a window. Susan spun and orbited a desk while singing the school song. Moody seemed unimpressed by her approach. None of them regained control until Moody lifted the curse. "Gryffindor," Moody's voice rumbled. "Your turn." Derek stepped to the center, meeting Moody's 2 piercing eyes. Moody raised his wand. "Imperious!" It was a strange sensation. Derek felt weightless, his thoughts and worries swept away. Pressure vanished, leaving only a hazy, intangible joy. He stood there, light and carefree, vaguely aware of all eyes on him. Then he heard Moody's voice echo in some distant corner of his empty mind. "Forward roll. Do a forward roll." Derek frowned. The voice felt invasive, as if something foreign had entered his brain. He instinctively employed mental shielding to push it out. "Forward roll? Why won't you do a forward roll?" His will strengthened. The mental shield restored his consciousness. In the next moment, clarity returned. Like a drowning man breaking the surface, the hollow echo in Derek's mind vanished. He was astonished. Was that it? Even resisting Lupin's mind probe had felt heavier. Good, that's how it's done. Moody's voice rumbled. Excellent, Gryffindor. Look, everyone. He resisted effortlessly. The Imperius merely left him dazed for a moment. That's the power of a strong character and will. Don't let it control you easily. Listen to him, Ernie said as they exited the classroom, bouncing along the hallway. He had no resistance to the curse, but Moody assured him the effects would vanish by dinner. I thought we'd be attacked the moment we left the grounds. Who would even cast it on you otherwise? It's a rare experience, isn't it? Hannah said to Dizzy Susan, still steadying her. Someday we can brag we survived the Imperius curse. I wish I could be as calm as you, Derek, Justin said, envious. How did you do it? Well, Derek said casually, let's start with the basics. No sleeping in on weekends. How about that? Chapter 42. Fatigue. Harry's face was taut, his eyes wide as he summoned all his strength to point his wand at the teapot. In the next instant, a stiff, motionless turtle sprawled on the table, steam constantly hissing from its mouth. Not quite yet, Harry. Try again. Hermione waved her wand, turning the turtle back into a teapot. You've got the principle down by heart. Now what you need is a stable structure while casting the spell. Details matter. Harry let out a long sigh, deflating like a punctured balloon. All morning we've been transforming teapots. Can we practice something else? Or you could explain animagus theory to me, he said, exasperated. This was last term's final exam material. Every time I wave my wand, I feel like Professor McGonagall is right beside me watching. Precisely because it's last term's material, I want you to practice repeatedly, Harry, Hermione snapped. If you haven't mastered the basics, how can you handle animagus transformation? Your transfiguration is still far from adequate. But Derek said that Sirius method doesn't require high-level theory. Harry pointed to Derek, who was flipping through a book nearby. Maybe we could start directly from the notes. Derek glanced at Hermione and noticed she looked exactly like a younger version of Professor McGonagall. Oh, how many times do I have to tell you, Harry? Hermione said angrily. We're lucky to have Derek's mother's notes. Studying animagus will also improve your transfiguration. You can't just follow a step-by-step guide blindly, because it's easy to mess up and learn nothing, Derek finished with a grin. You've said that plenty of times already, but now Harry wants to learn the simplest, fastest way. Thank you, Hermione, Harry said firmly. And we still have 4 years at Hogwarts, plenty of time to study transfiguration in depth. Hermione narrowed her eyes, clearly skeptical. Sirius can write to Harry any time to give guidance, Hermione, Derek reassured her. With your supervision, Harry can still gain something, right? After a moment, Hermione reluctantly nodded. You explain it to him, then, she said, arms crossed, sounding irritated. Boys, improving your abilities is the ultimate goal of learning, and right now you're treating it like a game. More than a month into the term, amidst the bombardment of heavy homework, Harry finally remembered that learning animagus was a task he had yet to complete. By then, Derek and Hermione had roughly gone through the notes, flagging the most difficult sections to focus on. Hermione had been a negative influence throughout. She neither reminded Harry nor helped Derek organize the notes. It was only when Harry remembered on his own that she begrudgingly pulled him into the study group. Initially, the animagus group became little more than a transfiguration tutoring session. Hermione even considered raising all 3 of their transfiguration grades to NEUT level before tackling animagus properly. But Harry wasn't slow to realize the problem. Waiting until his transfiguration was NEWT level would take until 7th year. Through repeated debates, Hermione gradually lowered her standards. By today, Harry was finally ready to understand genuine animagus transformation. An hour and a half later, Derek, Hermione, and Harry left the empty 3rd-floor classroom. When they reached the entrance hall, they found they could go no further. Students were crowded around a large summer announcement at the foot of the marble stairs. Ron was standing on tiptoe, peering over the heads of those in front. Spotting them, he read the notice aloud. Triwizard Tournament representatives from Beauxbatons and Durmstrang will arrive Friday, October 30th at 6 in the evening. Afternoon classes will end 30 minutes early. Students should return books and bags to their dormitories, gather in front of the castle to welcome our guests, and then attend the welcoming feast. Fantastic! Harry said. "The last class on Friday is potions. Snape won't have time to poison us all." "Our last class is charms," Derek said. "According to Professor Flitwick, it won't involve much teaching anyway." "Only a week to go." Ernie pushed through the crowd, eyes shining. "I wonder if Cedric knows yet? I'll go tell him." "Derek, you coming?" Derek felt a faint pang in his chest, but smiled slightly. "You go ahead. I'll stay and watch." "Cedric?" Ernie hurried off. Ron looked puzzled. "You mean Diggory?" Harry's eyes flicked over Derek. "He's definitely planning to compete." "That idiot also a Hogwarts champion?" Ron muttered. Hermione cleared her throat loudly, giving Ron a shut-up glare. "He's not an idiot. You don't like him because he beat Gryffindor in Quidditch," she said. "He's an excellent student and a prefect." "From your tone, that says it all," Ron said sharply. "You like him just because he's handsome." "I'm not that shallow." Hermione shot a quick glance at Derek, annoyed. "And you, Ron, nearly jumped out of the box at the World Cup for Cho." Ron feigned a cough, sounding strangely like Lockhart. Hermione gave him a look that promised retribution and swiftly walked into the Great Hall. This announcement clearly impacted everyone living in the castle. Over the following week, no matter where Derek went, everyone seemed to be talking about one topic: the Triwizard Tournament. Rumors spread quickly among students like a contagious virus: who would compete for Hogwarts, what events would be included, and how Beauxbatons and Durmstrang students differed. At the same time, the castle seemed to be undergoing a thorough cleaning. Several grimy portraits were scrubbed clean, though the paintings resented it. They huddled in their frames, muttering in discomfort whenever a newly exposed patch of pink flesh was touched. The armor gleamed unexpectedly and no longer creaked when moved. Caretaker Argus Filch erupted in fury at the first sign of unpolished shoes, frightening two first-year girls into hysterics. These thoughts only made Derek more restless. The idea of stopping Cedric from signing up for the Triwizard Tournament refused to leave him, yet he couldn't find any concrete evidence, neither in reality nor in memory, to support his concerns. On the other hand, he hadn't found the right approach. If he couldn't convince himself, how could he convince Cedric? Could he really curse his friend for such a vague, intangible reason? In the end, he resolved to speak to Cedric with complete sincerity. "Something on your mind, Derek?" Cedric asked, confused, as Derek pulled him aside into a quiet corner of the common room. "I haven't finished my charms essay yet." "Cedric," Derek began, "I know you want to sign up for the Triwizard Tournament." It was stated as a fact. Cedric rubbed his hair, staying attentive. "But I suggest you don't," Derek continued. "The competition could be dangerous." Cedric's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. "Thanks for looking out for me, mate," he said, patting Derek on the shoulder. "I appreciate the research you did. I know previous champions suffered heavy casualties, but that was over a century ago. Now we have Professor Dumbledore, Europe's most powerful wizard. He won't let any champions get hurt. You might not fully understand his abilities." "No. I do understand Dumbledore very well. I've read biographies about him." Derek swallowed hard. "But this time it's different. I want you to listen to me with a completely objective, neutral mind. Don't interrupt, even if it sounds absurd." Cedric's brow furrowed, and his expression grew serious. "Go ahead, then," he said. "Let's start with 1991, the year Harry Potter began at Hogwarts. You remember what happened during his first year. Dumbledore hid the Philosopher's Stone at school. Voldemort possessed a teacher to try to steal it, and in the end, Harry stopped him." Cedric shivered slightly. "Then in 1992, Harry's second year, the Chamber of Secrets, sealed for decades, was opened. The basilisk was released. Several students and ghosts were petrified, and Harry went to the chamber and killed it. Last year, Harry's godfather, Sirius Black, escaped from Azkaban. It was eventually proven he was innocent, and Peter Pettigrew was the traitor and murderer. Dementors lingered around Hogwarts nearly the entire term. So as a sixth year, you didn't experience such exciting school years from first to third year." Derek carefully chose his words. "Think about it. Ever since Harry arrived at Hogwarts, things have been different." "And?" Cedric prompted. "This year Harry is in fourth year, and Hogwarts is hosting the Triwizard Tournament. Following the trend of the past 3 years, what do you think will happen? How will Harry collide with Voldemort?" Derek lowered his voice. As your friend, I want you to stay away from the tournament. It's not envy or jealousy. I'm genuinely worried about you. Cedric shivered again, glancing at him with a strange look. Do you think what I'm saying makes sense? Derek asked hopefully. Well, it sounds crazy, but there's some sense to it, Cedric said slowly. But I have a question. Do you have any proof that the tournament will be dangerous? Any details? Any clues? No, Derek admitted helplessly. Then that's fine, Cedric said firmly. The tournament isn't like Dumbledore's protective measures. It isn't like the Chamber, and it certainly isn't like Azkaban. 3 schools, 3 headmasters, judges, and students as spectators. Everything is above board. If I become a champion, I'll do my best for myself and for Hogwarts. That's all there is to it. Sometimes, mate, he patted Derek on the shoulder again, you just overthink things. It only scares yourself. With that, he returned to the armchair by the fire and continued his charms essay. Derek lowered his head in frustration. For the sake of his friend, he had even revealed a glimpse of a hidden truth, yet Cedric clearly didn't believe him. At this point, there was nothing more he could do. Chapter 43, The Guests. On the morning of October 30th, when they went downstairs for breakfast, they found the Great Hall transformed overnight. Massive silk banners hung from the walls, each representing one of Hogwarts' houses, a golden lion on a red background for Gryffindor, a bronze eagle on blue for Ravenclaw, a black badger on yellow for Hufflepuff, and a silver serpent on green for Slytherin. Behind the staff table, the largest banner displayed the Hogwarts crest, lion, eagle, badger, and serpent intertwined around a bold letter H. Derek, Ernie, and Justin sat at the Hufflepuff table right next to Cedric and other 6th-year students. Their group was deep in discussion about the Triwizard Tournament. The ministry and the school's secrecy work really well, Shabby grumbled. So far, we still have no clue how the champions will be selected. That's not a problem, right? A blonde-haired boy, whose name Derek couldn't recall, said. Cedric's bound to be one of the champions anyway. Hey, don't be so sure. Hogwarts has plenty of capable older students, Cedric said, blushing. Like Ravenclaw's Roger Davies. Davies has wasted all his energy on girls, the blonde boy scoffed. He can't compare to you, especially that day outside the greenhouse. I overheard your conversation with Professor Sprout. Next semester, you'll be president of the Boys' Society. The table erupted in proud cheers, drawing the attention of the entire hall. 2 tall boys nearest Cedric slapped him hard on the shoulders. Brilliant, Ernie said with envy. It's been over a century since this tournament, and now 6th and 7th years finally get the chance. I guess your next line is, too bad we'll all be graduated in 5 years, so we'll never claim eternal glory. Poor timing, Derek said, spreading butter on his bread. Yeah, poor timing, Ernie murmured dreamily. 1,000 galleons. If we all meet the age requirement this year, the most likely candidate is still Derek, Justin analyzed. Your transfiguration is incredible, mate. I doubt many of the older students could surpass you. I've said it more than once since the start of term, but apparently no one remembers. This competition can be deadly, Derek sighed. Why can't anyone see that? People are risking their lives just for fame and 1,000 galleons. That day, the air was thick with eager anticipation. In class, no one paid attention. Everyone was thinking about the arrival of the Beauxbatons and Durmstrang students that evening. Professor Flitwick, understanding their excitement, halted lessons to teach them the history of the Triwizard Tournament, and each student listened with rapt attention. When the bell rang early, students hurried back to their house common rooms, dropped their books and bags as instructed, donned their cloaks, and gathered in the entrance hall. Househeads weaved through the crowd, directing students into lines while inspecting their appearance. Follow me, please, Professor McGonagall said. First years up front, don't crowd. They filed down the steps in orderly lines, standing before the castle. The evening was cold and crisp, night falling, a pale translucent moon already hovering over the forbidden forest. Derek stood in the 4th row from the front between Ernie and Justin. It's almost 6 o'clock, Justin said, glancing at his watch and surveying the crowd. How do you think they'll arrive? By express train? That would be too ordinary, Susan to Justin's left said. They're from 2 of the strongest schools in Europe. They'll have some special transportation, surely. Or a portkey, Ernie guessed. straight from their place to Hogwarts entrance. They weren't alone. Many students whispered, speculating on how the visiting students would appear. Then, from the back where the staff stood, Dumbledore called out, "Ah, if